Hello there, my name is Mooseman. Today I will be informing you of whether you should play, wait, or avoid the city building game, City Skylines. As always, I will be looking at gameplay, visuals, value, and future potential before making a final verdict on the release version of City Skylines. City Skylines is a city building game in which you are the mayor whose job it is to plan out and maintain a city of your own design. This may sound familiar to anyone who's played a recent SimCity or any of the other city building games, as the genre has been around since the original SimCity came out in 1989. However, the past decade of city building games has been quite lackluster, with the only real attempts at the genre being mediocre at best. While Paradox Interactive has created city management games in the past with the Cities in Motion series, Paradox is now attempting to expand City Skylines into a full city building experience to rival SimCity and Cities XXL. In order to build a successful city in City Skylines, you will have to be able to manage every aspect of your citizens' lives, everything from traffic caused by congested roadways to figuring out what to do with wastewater must be accounted for. Your main job, however, is determining which areas will be designated for which types of buildings: low or high density residential, low or high density commercial, industrial, or offices. Once you designate these zones as a certain type, buildings will pop up automatically to fill in the zones depending on how much demand your city has for that type of building and the land value of that area. The land value is determined by what special buildings your area has access to, such as schools, police stations, and firehouses. Zoning in City Skylines is some of the best I've seen in the city building games, partly because the system removes a lot of the micromanaging from rezoning if you decide to expand or change an area of your city. Let's say you want to upgrade a road. Normally you would have to completely redesign the area to accommodate the new road, destroying dozens of buildings and then replacing them once you're finished. Instead, you can simply press an upgrade button which will expand the road and reshape the zoning around it. Buildings that do not fit will be rebuilt as different buildings automatically, which is wonderful, especially if you are upgrading large amounts of road at once. With the game taking over a lot of the micromanaging that results around rezoning areas, you'll be spending more time designing your city and less time fixing it later on. Whenever you place a specialized building, you'll see waves of green happy faces or red frowning faces. This directly translates to whether your decision has increased the value of the land or decreased the value of the land. Building things like highways over your residential zones that cause noise pollution will cause the land to become less desirable, while ensuring that your citizens have access to each level of education will increase the land's desirability. This allows you to quickly realize which buildings will benefit your citizens and where you will need to put them for maximum benefit. The game color codes everything in the building mode, which allows you to easily see what needs to be improved and what is causing your city problems. This brings me to why I believe City Skylines is truly an improvement over other city builders: accessibility. At its core, the game is extremely easy to pick up and play without any prior knowledge of the city building genre, and this is great for those looking to get into their first city building game. There is a good degree of depth to most of the systems in the game, but the game displays the needs of your city in a way that makes it easy to understand and causes you to naturally move toward the more advanced solutions. The pacing in the game also helps introduce new options slow enough where it doesn't overwhelm new players, but fast enough to where veterans will not feel like they're being held back. The game providing accessibility for new players while still being challenging for veterans of the genre is one of the key things I think that makes City Skylines stand out from other city builders. While specialized buildings and systems are easy to use and understand, I do have to criticize the depth of some of these systems. While things like transportation and education feel fully fleshed out, other systems such as crime, wind, and ground pollution have very little to no impact on your city. Throughout my time in City Skylines, I hardly ever had to pay attention to crime, as it never rose above 6%, even in crisis situations where some areas did not have a police station. Pollution on the ground doesn't spread at all and is essentially limited to industrial buildings and waste sites, and the wind system doesn't spread pollution like it realistically would. Rather, it solely exists to determine how much power your windmills will receive. Although these lackluster systems are not a huge deal, they do negatively affect the depth of how much planning you have to put into your city overall. Unlocking new buildings and tools in City Skylines is solely determined by how much population your city has. At first, you only have a very small amount of freedom on what you can build, but that will slowly change depending on how many citizens you attract to your city. The system has been used in other city builders in the past, and it's a great system that allowed me to both learn the game while avoiding a traditional tutorial. City building can be overwhelming, as there are dozens of aspects to manage, so trickling down different parts of the game to the player over time allows the game to teach itself instead of requiring a 50-page manual on what to do. Returning to pacing, one of the problems with city builders is sometimes that it feels like you hit a technology ceiling too quickly. That is not the case in Cities Skylines, as there are a variety of endgame buildings to work towards unlocking. Buildings called unique buildings give special bonuses to an area and are the first tier of endgame buildings. They are often very expensive and have specific requirements, such as having a large number of commercial buildings, but provide a huge boost to land value in the area. The second tier of endgame buildings, monuments, are only accessible after reaching 80,000 citizens and having a complete set of unique buildings. Monuments are futuristic buildings such as space elevators and fusion power plants that reward players massively if they can successfully build them. These buildings give you something to work toward even after you unlock all the upgrades available in the game. City policy has always been a part of city building games, but City Skylines' district system allows you to have much more control over what policies are active in which parts of your city. The district system allows you to dictate which policies are enforced where, so in your small posh neighborhood you may want to encourage recycling, while your inner city you may want to ban large traffic from passing through. If you're feeling especially progressive, you can even legalize recreational drugs in certain areas, or you could reduce garbage production in an area by banning pets. Each of these policies have pros and cons which should be carefully considered to ensure that your city has maximum efficiency. An important part of building a city is being able to build a big city, which has been something that Cities XXL with its bad performance and SimCity with its restrictively small zones failed to accomplish. Cities Skylines, however, allows you to build huge cities in the base game, starting you off with a 4 square kilometer map and expanding that to 36 square kilometers as you unlock new territory. And with simple mods, you can nearly triple that area up to 100 square kilometers to build even bigger cities. One of the things that surprised me greatly about Cities Skylines was how well the game runs. Even at maximum settings, I can run the game smoothly on my GTX 770 and i5 3.8 GHz processor, only getting some slight frame loss when cities begin to push 100,000 citizens. The game will run slower the more you build, meaning the mod that unlocks the 100 square kilometer area may not be possible on anything but higher end machines. The performance of the game is even more impressive when you realize that every one of the citizens in the game has a fully simulated life. You can literally follow the average Joe through his basic daily tasks, and it gives a whole new life to your city. You can even rename every citizen, every building, and even their pets if you want to. Citizens having a static life, job, and place of residence does give life to your city, but one criticism I do have about the lifelikeness in City Skylines is the fact that there's no day and night cycle. Time goes by at months at a time, and without a day and night cycle, some of the depth to the traffic system is lost. There are no rush hours, there are no times when the streets are just quiet at night, and there's just a constant flow of people moving between their daily tasks. This allows for easier traffic management, but it does take away quite a significant part of city life. So we've covered the basics of building a city and what goes into making your city tick, but what about disasters that you will need to prepare for in your city? Although there are no meteor storms or aliens like in SimCity that come to destroy your city, there are some very real threats to your city's survival. Fire can destroy buildings unless you get it under control with firemen, but water is what will end up being your worst enemy. In order to keep your citizens alive, you will need to ensure that they have access to both water and sewage. The water lines in the game allow you to connect your pumps to water treatment plants in the city, but that water has to come and go from somewhere. If you end up pumping out too much water from an area, you could end up depleting the source entirely or cause the river to flow back on itself, bringing in waste from downstream. If you end up pumping in toxic water, you can very quickly find your city dying off in a matter of weeks. Floods can move swiftly through your city if you do not manage rivers and lakes carefully, so ensuring that you maintain an adequate height of your rivers is essential. While the lack of grand disasters may put off some people to the game, I have found that the realistic disasters feel more like disasters rather than random destructions left to chance. Each disaster in Cities Skylines can be avoided with proper care. It may cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to dam up a dangerous river, but you could end up saving your city from being completely wiped out down the line. Lack of caring about or incompetently managing what may seem to be mundane problems is exactly what urban planning is all about. In my time playing the game, I have run into a few bugs that have negatively affected the experience of the game. Dams specifically are very buggy and have some usability issues. In the case of my dam, for seemingly no reason, water began to leak through the bottom. Dams also automatically orient themselves depending on the current flow of the river, meaning that if you're trying to redirect or change the river, it is impossible from my experience to flip the dam in another direction. While there are only a few maps available in the base game, the game does include an in-game terrain editor, which can allow you to sculpt any land you desire. The game also has an asset editor which can allow you to create custom buildings as well. The terrain editor is very simple to use and gives you a list of requirements for what your map must have to be able to support a city. If you are like me and you don't have any talent for creating maps or assets, the Steam Workshop allows you to acquire more maps and assets that other players have made. The visuals in City Skylines are pretty good overall. Although the graphics aren't enough to amaze me, they are of high enough quality to keep me impressed overall at how the game looks. Couple that with the fact that only in extreme cases does the game ever drop frames, and I really don't have much to complain about in terms of general graphics. One weakness in the visuals, however, is that without mods, buildings of the same type tend to repeat themselves frequently. Sometimes stores directly next to each other are simply recolors or even identical. City Skylines is debuting at a $30 price tag for the normal game and a $40 price tag for the deluxe edition, which are prices that are very competitive with SimCity's $60 launch price tag and Cities XXL's $40 launch price tag. At a per hour value, there isn't much to complain about at this price, as my first city alone took me over 20 hours to get to the point where it's at now, and I'm still working on completing endgame objectives. City games inherently have a ton of replayability, and City Skylines is no exception to that. Creating different styles of cities and using different planning techniques on different maps will yield at least 100 hours of gameplay, if not more, which for $30 is one of the best deals I've come by in my review series. From day one, modding support has been fully integrated in the game, meaning everything from new buildings to custom maps to custom difficulty settings can be imported from the Steam Workshop. This modding allows for unlimited new possibilities to add to your game, free of charge. Even in the pre-release period, the workshop has begun to fill up with new things to add to my world. Although modding seems like it will provide countless new additions to City Skylines, I am interested in seeing what kind of additional DLC or expansion packs will be available in the future. From the Skylines City FAQ page, in addition to free updates being released over time, I learned that there will be several expansions that are planned for the future, although there's only a vague reference to transportation being mentioned in terms of specifically what we will be getting. City Skylines improves upon the city builder formula to deliver an experience that this generation of gamers have been missing out on. City Skylines delivers a truly great and accessible experience for the modern generation of gamer. With its more than reasonable price tag and vast replayability as the cherry on top, there is no other verdict that I could come up with for City Skylines besides play. If you've been waiting like me for a modern take on the city building genre, then you will not be disappointed with City Skylines. Thank you for watching my play, wait, or avoid review of City Skylines. If you would like to buy the game, a link to the Steam store page is in the description below. And if you would like to see more of my content, subscribe and check out my channel where I do reviews and other gaming commentary, such as my review on Medieval Engineers, a destruction-based physics game where you must engineer medieval-style buildings and weaponry that hold up to not only projectiles but gravity itself, or my review on Coffin Dodgers, a traditional-style kart racer game with old people on mobility scooters racing against the Grim Reaper.